All right, let's now move on to the papers. Just have a quick look at what the dailies have for us today. I have a copy of the Daily Nation. Not too many stories have been featured here, but we start off with the story here concerning a warning that has been sent out by World Health Organization concerning obesity apps. So millions of people are piling up the weight from food delivery, food that is delivered to them via apps, and this, according to experts, needs to be regulated due to the increased number of obesity cases that have been reported. I'll be giving you the details of this particular story because they have narrowed it down to Kenya, giving us the figures that we need to understand as a country. Away from that, the main read today concerns Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka. Did he talk himself out of a job? That is the question. And as far as political options are concerned, it seems that Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka finds himself between a rock and a hard place, rather. And in his path that has been termed as a frustrated journey towards the hunt of being deputy president, he can't officially quit the coalition because of the agreement that they had signed. And on the other side, his chances of running as an individual for the presidency continues to grow thinner and thinner. And still some high-ranking officials from the Azimio part of the divide saying that the push by Deputy President William Ruto to have Kalonzo Musyoka named as Raila Odinga's running mate is suspicious. I'll be giving you those details in just a bit. And also concerning education, confusion and congestion as Form 1s report to schools. This is a process that officially started yesterday. So many parents went on to complain and just share their frustration, some on social media, concerning the challenges that they have been experiencing when it comes to taking the children to high school, considering out of the 1 million, let me get the actual figure, out of the 1,179,192 candidates who sat for the KCPE exams, only 7,927 did not get admission. And this particular group included inmates, overage candidates, and candidates from refugee camps. So almost all of them were placed in various schools. But according to also what principals are saying, facilities are overcrowded, the institutions are overcrowded, and the facilities are not enough to cater for these numbers. Some parents have said that the schools have told them to purchase some items that were not part of what they were initially supposed to purchase. But according to the parents that have been given some of these extra items on this list, these are requirements that the schools are giving them, and is actually they are required to take their kids to school with these items or they will not be admitted. And of course, this boils down to the financial burden that is still being placed on parents to just make sure that the 100% transition is effective. Finally, tribunal to hear judge's graft case. This is in regards to the tribunal that was recommended by the JSC in regards to looking into the case involving Chitembwe and just looking at the charges that have been leveled against him, which include gross misconduct and misbehavior that go back to the video that was actually leaked sometime in November last year by former Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko that depicted the judge to be sort of scheming to interfere with an active court case. These details coming up in just a bit. Mike.
Yes, very good morning to you. And on the Star, the top headline is Raila's new Mount Kenya game plan. So he's aggressively touring Ruto's perceived stronghold. And it continues on page 4 and 5. So the ODM leader will personally take charge of his campaigns. Raila thinks that Raila's think tank, hopes that the new Cascade campaign will inject much needed momentum to his State House push. More on that later on. More from the front page. This story has been leading actually all week. It's about a judge, Said Chitembwe, and his career being in limbo. That continues on page 2. The High Court Judge Said Juma Chitembo is staring at an uncertain future after Judicial Service Commission yesterday recommended formation of a tribunal to investigate him over allegations of gross misconduct. Now a quick recap on that. Petitioners had last year moved to the JSC demanding the removal of the judge on claims he had taken a bribe to defeat the cause of justice. More on that later on. Still on the front page of the Star, Azimiola Umoja makes a U-turn on Raila's August running mate interviews. That was a really interesting story that has been developing over the course of the week. That is on page 3. Yes, so more on that later on. Jane was saying earlier on, parents are saying there's pain and desperation within the Form 1 admissions that was happening yesterday. So people are saying that, prices have doubled. For example, a box that was 1,200 shillings last year, this year is 2,500 shillings. So that's actually painful. You can imagine. 1,200 shillings to 2,500 shillings.
Oh. That's
very, very painful.
Wow.
1%.
It's a lot.
Top.
Now you can imagine, okay, let's take a look at it from this perspective. That's just the box. So what about, the commodities that you're going to need when you're in school? What about the, stationery that you're going to need when you're in school? The school fees, the uniforms.
Yes.
So there were claims actually with this article on the Star that some of these, principals were demanding that you have to have like a full set of school uniforms given the state of the nation at this point in time. Doreen, what do you think about this?
And remember, these days actually in most schools you get to buy these uniforms in that school with the prices that the school has set for the parents. And this is just a box.
Just
and
the
factored
box.
in the cost of living just for basic commodities on top of that.
And just to add on to that story, even looking at this particular story, the saddest bit is here they've captured a story of a young boy. He's said to be an orphan. He actually just reported to school with that box. Nothing else inside. And they were given a whole list of requirements that they needed to report back to school with. Some even include a calculator, mathematical tables, and rim papers. Did we need calculators in Form 1?
You don't need a calculator in Form 1.
No, you don't.
That's actually...
Remember the scientific calculators?
Yeah.
Did we need them in Form 1?
No, you did not.
And now some schools are demanding that they also show up with some of these things. And actually yesterday, if you were to pass through town, you would see parents working. Remember these long hard brooms or mezibeba, others have buckets, others have so many other paraphernalia. You're like, wait, I know I was in school a number of years back, but it has changed this much.
It's like you're going with every single thing. And to add to that, some of these principals were saying that you have to clear the first term school fees,
yeah,
all of it,
to be admitted.
You're admitted to the school.
But you would also say they're put between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah.
Considering that every candidate that did the KCP exam has been placed in a school, and actually there was a school that actually all the candidates were placed in one school. From primary, they were placed to a specific school within the locality, all of them in one school. Considering these numbers and the fact that most schools have not added extra classrooms or built extra dormitories to accommodate all these kids, and most of them, are boarding schools. Mutapeleka watoto boarding school.
And we also have to contend with the issue of security and banditry in some parts of Baringo, like Kipia.
Where curfew has been imposed in some of these areas.
There's a curfew as well in Marsabit, so quite a challenge this time around.
And the ministry was particular to place kids within schools that are closest to where they already were.
Yes.
Hakuna kupelekwa sijui this other county because you did so well, it's a school you preferred, which is also something that parents are complaining about.
Yeah. Exactly. Like on the Star, it continues to read that parents are blaming the computerized selection for placing the children, to far schools. So it's a tricky situation for Form 1 students and their parents, but you know, all shall be well. Hopefully.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
Upatia watu moyo, all shall be well.
And
All will be well.
Usipojipea moyo utapewa na nani?
You know, at this point in time. But you know, at this point in time, you know, you have to lead with hope. You know, there's always a brighter tomorrow.
yeah.
More on that later on, Doreen.
Actually, it looks like obviously that story is on every daily this morning. And even as you were talking about these students being placed in Form 1, you can remember that the CS yesterday had mentioned that there was going to be that 100% transition whereby over this 1 million candidates who sat for KCP are going to be placed in secondary schools. And now, as it turns out, there's a bit of clash between the school heads, that is the principals, and the ministry, because what the ministry right now is saying is that they did an assessment of various schools across the country and it showed that most of these schools are well equipped, and this is why they resolved that no child should be denied secondary education. So it means that according to the ministry, every school actually has what it needs to have to ensure that every child is accommodated. Now, this is not sitting well with the school heads because the other ones feeling the pinch, according to this particular article. Also, what you're waking up to this morning on the PD is the CEO help, that is Charles Ringera. He is saying that Kenyans should honor their obligations. This is when it comes to paying of their HELB loans, because he is saying that failure to this will render over 75,000 students at risk of not being funded for their further studies. So this is why he's saying that it is very important. And again, that the waiver has been extended from to June 30th. Initially, it was from March 1st to April 30th, but now that has been extended to June 30th, and it continues to urge Kenyans to just pay their HELB loans. Away from that, to some bit of politics, this story was also captured this morning on the GMK news briefs, whereby Azimio candidates are to face another round of vetting, and the flag bearer there also mentioned that they will be subjected to opinion polls as well as zoning. So it simply means that, for instance, looking at a party like Wiper, Jubilee, and particularly ODM, the candidate who is more popular is the one who will actually carry the who will fly the party ticket. And I mean, it's quite interesting because also I was having this conversation with Troy earlier on, since what exactly does it mean, given the fact that nominations already done and nomination certificates were handed over to candidates, names submitted to IEBC, and far much we know as it pertains to that is that the names that are submitted are the ones that are going to carry the day when it comes to the August 9th general election. So going by what the Azimio coalition is saying, so basically what does this portend for those candidates who have already been handed over the party certificate, the various parties in this coalition? And also, army worms raid Kilifi. They leave trail of destruction. This has just happened in a span of 2 weeks at a time, whereby we are still grappling with the issue of drought, particularly in some parts of the country, most specific in the north eastern parts of the country. And this is just happening in Kilifi. When we get to the details, I'm telling you more about this particular story and article and what is happening in that county. And also, lastly, for Indomie lovers, bad news for you. Whew. According to COMESA, that is the common market for Eastern and Southern Africa. One of those favorites kind of foods, if I may say, amongst children and the young people, but not as good.
Let me tell you, Doreen.
A clear definition of fast food. 2 minutes, you're eating.
I'm a lover of this, by the way. You know, when you go to shopping, these things don't miss. It just doesn't miss.
When you have kids, no ukiona holiday wiki saba.
Your lunch kidogo na.
Kids eat like little, I don't know.
COMESA has released a report now. This may not just be good for your health.
I know. I read that story and I was like, the amount of noodles we have consumed.
I hate. Kasi Mungu, tungekuwa wapi?
I can only imagine, because I remember my days, you know, bachelorhood. You know, when you don't feel like cooking and going through the process of kukatakata, nyanya, vitungo and all that. Noodles, eka maji,
quick fast.
microwave, tosha.
But
good to go.
I think with noodles, whether bachelorhood or not, this is just one of those things you can't miss.
Foods that cut through time. Every gender. Siku moja jaribu kupikia mzazi wako noodles, alafu weke kamayai ama kanyama, ka red bell, yellow bell, whatever venye watabambika nayo.
Kwanza kishafika ile point where uchemshi tu maji na uweke, unaikaranga mpaka na kila kitu.
Minimal effort with fantastic output.
Very fast.
Very
That's
fast.
where the fast food came from.
But I think we need to catch a very quick breather before we get to continue with what the papers have for us. After this break, we'll be back with a quick look at the Standard with Troy. Do stay with us.
Welcome back. This is Good Morning Kenya. Let's have a quick one on the Standard. This is how the front page looks like. And the man there walking literally into the future is none other than Professor Kithure Kindiki, who is a Tharaka Nithi senator. Headline, the man said to be Ruto's deputy. With slightly over a week remaining, presidential candidates to pick their running mate, Tharaka Nithi Senator Kithure Kindiki emerges as a favorite to deputize Kenya Kwanza leader in a shortlist that also had Gachagua as a contender. They say some of the things that have made the name Kithure Kindiki stand out: loyalty, temperament, experience, acceptability, public record, and Mount Kenya roots. I'm still stuck on the temperament because we've seen politicians who quite have a temper. But other than that, he is a professor, and they say that he was a key architect of Jubilee Coalition Agreement bringing together President Uhuru Kenyatta and DP Ruto. He also represented DP Ruto at the International Criminal Court. In other headlines, we have Azimio's big U-turn on running mate interviews. I think they borrowed a leaf from Kenya Kwanza, but saying that because they had talked about setting up a committee that will vet the running mate. And yesterday, the committee said, no, we have decided not to do the interviews. Forget the interviews. The parties are supposed to only send the DP name so that it could be considered by the selection panel, saying it's not mandatory for candidates to appear before it. Of course, some leaders, including Kalonzo Musyoka, had opposed, and his battalion had talked about this guy has been with you since 2013. We went to the ballot in 2017. We don't need any interviews. But some critics have argued that if at all you have to interview a doctor who will do your surgery, we also need somebody who will do our surgery to our economy to also be vetted. But anyway, it's politics. In other news, JSC judge in Sonko case to face tribunal. We're talking about that was actually one of the top stories in many newsrooms, that the fate of Justice Said Chitembwe lies in the hands of a tribunal to be appointed by President Uhuru Kenyatta after Judicial Service Commission recommended his suspension for gross misconduct. Actually, he had 3 petitions against him, and on 27th of April, the Judicial Service Commission panel recommended that he should be investigated. So what happens is that in 14 days, the head of state is supposed to appoint. Actually, he's first of all supposed to suspend the judge. He will be on half pay until he is cleared or he exits judiciary. So the president will set up a tribunal to investigate his conduct. Well, there's some videos that surfaced of him appearing to be in a compromising position, and also sub judice, that is discussing matters pending in court on camera. That is some of the issues that made the good judge soup boil. And inside we have 9 babies born at the same time. Mark first birthday in perfect health.
Wait.
Yes, 9 babies born at the same time, mark first birthday. Okay, I'm quite sure these parents really have a lot in their hands, literally. And they're talking about 30 weeks pregnancy term by which the 5 girls and 4 boys were born at 30 weeks. They weighed between 1/2 kilo and 1 kilo, and they are in perfect health. There was only nuptuplets. I don't know the word. 9 babies born at the same nanoplets.
I was actually looking for that.
For the nano, the technology. Actually, they seem to have been born via technology, but they have celebrated the first birthday and in perfect health.
I remember when that story came out last year, I was like, wait, 9. Kama moja unasikianga.
How now?
Hey, 1, 2, 3, 4, 9.
9.
You know what I'm picturing?
9 perfect health.
Diaper duty for 9 babies.
When one starts to cry, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti,
do, ti.
You know the way multiples
Because they are 9.
have a way they are so coordinated in some behaviors.
Yeah. Wow.
Sasa huyo alikuwa amemaliza
Milk bottles, and they've survived 1 year. Wacha sasa waingie terrible too.
Moja akiamka, wote, you have 9.
But the parents are doing a fantastic job.
Yes.
Even the government stepped in last year to just say they're going to be helping this family navigate this
it's just the
version
grace
of
to do
parenthood.
It's the grace
Wow.
to do it. The parents just have the grace to do it. And to continue doing it.
Kila mtoto anakuja na sahani yake.
If there are some people who should receive the head of state commendation are the parents, man. Yeah.
Way.
9. Okay. Detectives study MP's firearm in investigations on death of his son. We are talking about the death of the son to nominated MP David Sankok, who allegedly shot himself in the head 2 days ago. They're investigating to know exactly what transpired and whether, they're talking about whether that firearm was licensed. There are some reports that it was actually a rifle. And you know, in Kenya, rifles are only allowed to be in the hands of disciplined forces and not civilians. All right, elsewhere, they're talking about the back to school. Yes, I'm quite sure. Is it all of us who have felt the pinch because of the schools back to school? Jane?
I.
Okay, yeah, the pinch they're talking about, of course, amid complaints of financial difficulties, as you had alluded to earlier, and they're talking about also insecurity, banditry, drought, you know. There were school feeding programs, and when in some schools like Baringo, they were having a lot of students or pupils when that program was going on. But now, because of insecurity, a lot has changed. And so it has also changed for the Form 1s who are supposed to be reporting. Some parents have lost their livestock as their only source of income. But something I've gotten from Kisumu boys, the principal, Eric Duya, agreed to allow all the students to report. Fees or no fees, you just come, just like Professor Magoha talked about. Fees or no fees, and ask parents to be paying in installments. The question is, what about the students who have not reported in parts of Marsabit, in parts of Baringo, in parts of Laikipia because of insecurity? And the CS also warned heads not to turn away students over uniform. And I think, Doreen, you had talked about how back in the days we used to go to school and then you buy the uniform from the school itself, as opposed to you coming with a sky blue, and somebody has a navy blue, another one has a parliament blue, and it's the same class.
Parliament blue.
you remember? Some have bigger shorts, you know. The shorts used to be like trousers, so vile una grow, ni wenyewe inakuwa sasa short. You are growing into that uniform. Anyway, former IBC boss among those shortlisted for Court of Appeal, former Electoral Commission boss Isaac Hassan, among 135 applicants shortlisted for the Judicial Service Commission for the position of Court of Appeal and High Court judges. Question is, you do remember the Chicken Gate scandal? It might pop up in the interviews. I have had an opportunity to go and cover High Court judges' interviews. I've covered also Court of Appeal judges and also the Supreme Court judges, not to mention the Chief Justice. And integrity is the first and key thing they are after. And former IEBC boss, you do remember it was during his time when we had the Chicken Gate scandal, and all those who participated in that in London were fined, and the others went to jail. But here in Kenya, well, a story for another day. Jane?
Now, let me just quickly touch on that story concerning Sankok's late son. Here they go on to actually just to say what you have already touched on concerning this particular firearm. Detectives are now probing the registration status of this said firearm. It has been taken into custody. And you can remember they had mentioned that an autopsy was set to be done yesterday at a government facility, and it was done. The post-mortem examination that was conducted on the body on Tuesday evening by a government pathologist indicated, or rather confirmed, that the death was caused by a gunshot that passed through the minor's chin and exited at the top of his head. Now, according to the DCI, they say now they are, every member has recorded a statement, a total of 10 people, and they are now investigating how the boy gained access to the weapon. And so far, neither Sankok nor his wife have spoken publicly concerning this incident. So we just have to wait and see how the investigation continues in regards to that. And just to also add on to that story concerning High Court Judge Chitembwe, here they say that there were actually 4 petitions that were filed against him. 3 of them were eventually, 1 was terminated, 2 were withdrawn, and the remaining 1 is in regards to the JSC, which recommended to the president yesterday that a tribunal be set up to investigate the judge with the view of removing him from office. And the judge has 10 days to lodge an appeal against the recommendation, and should he fail to do so, the president will act on the recommendation that have been presented by the JSC. But according to his lawyer, he said, that is Peter Wenner, he said that the judge is ready to face off with his employer, the JSC, the tribunal, to prove his innocence, and maintains that the video were illegally obtained and cannot form the basis for Justice Chitembwe's removal from office. So again, this is a matter that is in court. We wait to see how it will play out. Now, let me bring you to this particular story. It's actually the main read on the front page of the Daily Nation concerning Kalonzo Musyoka's only options in the case of a running mate in the Azimio coalition. So here they go on to say that Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka has but 2 options. Number 1, walking out of the coalition party as an individual. Mind you, he still has the right to do so because he is entitled to the right to support whichever political party or candidate he does without attracting legal consequences as an individual, not as Wiper party leader. Or the other option is to disregard the coalition agreement that he had signed on the premise that he would have, or rather still be presented as the flag bearer for the coalition. It goes back to that time he said that, he did sign a deal with Raila Odinga a number of years back that should he want to run for presidency, Raila would back him, and that was on the basis to which he penned an agreement with this particular coalition. But should he want to walk out and disregard this agreement, there will be some legal consequences that will come along with this, because he is required to give a 3-month notice in order to exit the coalition. And given the time frame that we have to the general election, it might not be viable for him, considering if he should want to run as the party leader for Wiper party. But on the other hand, still in Azimio, there seems to be secrecy and suspicion in Azimio deputy role, and this is concerning the fact that the deputy president has been making statements and pushing for the Azimio coalition to name Kalonzo Musyoka as the running mate. They say that this is quote-unquote suspicious, and quoted here, they say that we think Ruto and Kalonzo have a secret pact. It wouldn't be a surprise, rather, if that were the case. And Kalonzo's behavior has been destructive all through. So they are seeking to wreck us from within. And according to another source, they say that the DP's camp was simply playing a psychological warfare with Azimio to have Musyoka named as Raila's running mate so that Ruto can pick Musalia Mudavadi as his running mate, because according to them, they think, or rather they say that DP thinks Musalia has an upper hand over Kalonzo Musyoka due to the numbers that they bring in from their regions. Siasa mbaya.
So this is all about psychology at the end of the day. It's nothing to do with what really is making headwinds in news.
It's about psychology. The numbers that you're going to bring. So why don't you name this one? And then me, ukisha name huyo, I'll name this one because this one has more numbers than the one you chose.
You know, some pundits said that much as IBC had extended that date to April 16th, you wouldn't be surprised when you actually see these two top candidates naming their running mates on the 15th at around 11:59, just before the clock ticks April 16th, because we are waiting to see who you are name nani kwanza before I name mine.
And before I get to hand you over back to Mike, let me just quickly touch on this story concerning what the World Health Organization has said in regards to obesity. Okay, so food apps have been blamed for the rising cases in obesity, and not just in Kenya or in Africa, but the world over. In Kenya, they've gone on to indicate that there are more than 10 food delivery apps, I'm not going to be naming them, that are operating within the Kenyan space, and the increase in the number of app-based businesses delivering food to people's doorsteps are contributing to the high rise in obesity cases, according to the World Health Organization. People are consuming unhealthy foods with little exercise. Okay? And now the interesting part is when, according to this report, they say when you carry too much body fat, it increases the risk of disease, including 13 types of cancers, 2 types, diabetes type 2, heart and lung problems. And should this trajectory continue, currently we're looking at 1.2 million deaths as a result of obesity. That is about 13% of all fatalities. And according to the World Obesity Federation, 8.4% of children aged between 5 and 9 in Kenya are likely to become obese by 2030. Pizza.
Yeah, and you get into your house on Friday, you order food Friday, Saturday and Sunday, and you come to work on Monday. You've added 2 kilos.
And you sit in an office.
Yes, and you sit in an office.
8 to
Makes
5.
things worse.
But they've gone on to judge parents, and they say some parents are giving the children pizza and deep fried chicken as a sign of love.
Or reward, for that matter.
I feel like it's more of a bribe.
Yosha nyumba, kuna pizza.
Interesting. Mike?
Yes, now on the Star, there's a really sad story. A missing girl was found dead after a 2-week search in Githurai. More on the story is a 12-year-old girl who went missing 2 weeks ago has been found dead after a frantic search for her in Githurai. According to police and the Missing Child Kenya, the body of Moreno Wangoi Kioi was first reported missing on April 20th at Githurai Mweki police station and discovered on May 1st. Morena people at Githurai 45's Juta Academy was last seen wearing a black hoodie and matching trousers around Mount Kenya area of the Kiambu County neighborhood, and it is not yet clear what happened to her and the motive behind the murder. So to put this in perspective, at least one case or a missing child is reported to the police Every day.
Wow. Every day.
Every single day. That's, you need to let that marinate for a minute and just put that into perspective.
It's a scary world.
It's actually quite scary when you think about it. It's quite scary when you think about it. This being Entertainment Thursday, on to lighter news. Creative industry is losing 252 million shillings daily to piracy. Although I feel like this is nothing new. I feel like ever since the dawn of the internet, there's always been piracy. So more on this, the creative industry advocates, partners against piracy, have called for legal protections against copyright infringement to be implemented within 100 days. Marking this year's World IP Day celebration last Wednesday, Studio 4 PAP interim convener Mike Strano said this would stem losses of 92 billion shillings a year to online piracy. Another 32 billion shillings is lost to pirated video content, affecting creators on Safaricom Base, My Movies Africa, Netflix, Showmax, YouTube, and more streaming platforms. What do you think can be done? Because I feel like this has always been, but I feel like it's more aggressive these days, the piracy.
Doreen, being an industry player,
what do you feel can be done to curb this?
This is actually a conversation we'll just be having at exactly 8 a.m. with one of those biggest industry players. He is better placed to tell us. He's been in the industry for over 10 years.
Wow. So hopefully we'll get some answers there. We'll
get some nuggets to understand. Because, I mean, it's really has been a conversation. And sometimes there's that talk of basically artists, they do not know how to copyright their intellectual property. There's no proper awareness, or if I may say sensitization or even education to know how to do this. We've heard of cases where, not even of cases, I think just the other day, where, is it Simple Boy who was saying that in his previous management, things were very thick for him. Yet yendo mwenye talent, yendo msanii.
I think there's truth to that, but it's a double-edged sword, because on one side, there's that whole aspect of not knowing, and knowledge is power. Not knowing, as an artist, my intellectual property, how do I protect it? What even can be quantified as intellectual property? And we're seeing so many young and upcoming artists making a beat, putting in a verse, aneka social media, it goes viral, everybody starts using it, and that's the end of that. You're not protected. Not protected, no. Not earning from anything. And we're also seeing some people who, whenever you use their music or any of their creations, and you do not acknowledge or even just have any contact to them, you are actually, whatever video or footage you had put up and featuring that music is actually pulled down because you're violating somebody else's rights in one way or the other. So, and this also goes to the collective management organizations, artists getting management to just help them navigate these waters. And sadly, not all of them can afford to get management or have access to this information. And my question is, will we ever, if we're being honest, get to a time where piracy is a distant past? No. Okay. Okay, here's the thing. If you're being honest. I agree with Doreen fully.
Idea.
I agree with Doreen fully with regard to lack of awareness. People are not aware. For instance, on YouTube, especially during this, whole lockdown phase of the COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of content creators started mushrooming on YouTube and all these other social medias like TikTok and, such and such. But they have no idea that that content needs to be, protected under copyright protection. Because even as kids, that's a script, you need to copyright that script. You just came up with even if you came up with it, within 2 minutes, that's still something that is worthy of our copyright protection. So, people need to look into that.
And it goes back to the definition of intellectual property. What does it cover, what does it protect? What is intellectual property? Because somebody would say, it's just a random YouTube or TikTok video.
It's just
but it is an original idea.
It is an original idea. Before we move on to the next story, and you know, this is actually one of the best stories I've ever read. I'm going to leave you guys to be the judges of that. But before we move on to that, let me give a quick tip. Anything recorded, even if it's a voice note, is worthy of copyright protection. You can't copyright a thought, but if you record anything, whether it's 1 minute or 2, copyright it. I hope we're in agreement there. So this is an article that I think the ladies, Troy, we need the ladies to answer this one. Confidence. This is the headline of the article, Confidence. Why women are attracted to Frankie.
Frankie just gym it.
Frankie just gym it. He's just gymming it.
I don't think that you can ask that question to women. You should ask.
Okay, because Troy and I are not in a position to answer any of the questions in this article.
Yes.
So
please,
let's get from Frankie's mouth.
From the horses.
Frankie Kiarie says women are attracted to him because he carries himself with confidence. This is something on the paper.
Confidence is attractive.
Confidence. It is. All right.
Do not misquote me, Mike. I can hear you taking a deep breath to misquote me. Do not put words
I'll just say different women are attracted to different things.
But confidence
and
is
I'd
one
leave
of
it at that. And I'd leave it at that.
Okay, now let's put this in context for the people who don't know who Frankie Just Jim it is. Frankie Kiarie, he recently had a breakup with his second baby mama, Corazon Kwamboka, months after welcoming the second child and 6 months after he engaged Corazon Kwamboka. Speaking to the paper, he said he's still single and in a relationship with God. But the main reason why women find him attractive is because of his confidence.
So this is him saying?
Him.
So it's not the women saying, it's actually him who thinks that.
I think it's because some people think that when you're confident, you know exactly what you should do or you are a problem solver.
Let me tell you one thing.
They think you know everything, so you should.
From a woman's
sort out everything.
point of standing.
Okay.
Imagine you're in your home, somebody broke in. You're just there with your partner and your kids.
Okay.
Alafu mwande manakuja kujificha nyuma yako.
That is courage. That's not confidence.
No, you defending me will show me that, hey man, this guy trusts in himself, is confident in himself.
Now
to
I get
Jane, so tusipige nduru si wote wawili.
But then let me tell you one thing. We're living in a time where women are saying, I like to see a man who shows his emotions, who's sensitive, who allows me in. But let me tell you, when a man shows a woman their vulnerable nature, it scares women.
Huh?
Oh,
yes,
it does.
It scares women. And yet, wanawake wanasema nini? Show me your softer side, show me, and this is a very controversial conversation, so don't come at me, but it is something that I also had to understand from a man's point of standing. We say we want them to be vulnerable with us, but can you handle that vulnerability?
Softer side of life. Anyway, guys, there's something I saw here. And I think it's going to bring a lot of confidence in Nairobi. You know, they're talking about we might decide to move Nairobi. So even the confidence itself is going to go.
To move it to where?
We could, actually. Some countries have done that. Nairobi is bursting, it seems. Is it time to relocate the capital? Some countries have done that.
Accommodate more.
It cannot accommodate.
Where's the space?
Some countries like Myanmar. Like Myanmar, the capital city was like Mombasa. And now they moved it to now Nairobi. 4.3 million people, population Nairobi, according to 2020 Kenya Bureau of Statistics. 30 million the people who are in Jakarta. It has burst its banks now. They're thinking of, can we relocate?
Ama ndio maana iliitwa Nairobi Metropolis to accommodate the neighboring Kajiado,
Kiambu,
next Machakos iletwe. Hivyo ndo inaanzanga.
Alafu
because continue with this traffic and the population is just keeping on, then we will not have anywhere to go unless tutengeneze ma first floor, barabara, second floor,
and all that. But still, Nairobi is the hub. When you look when you look at most of this company's industries, a lot of activities is in Nairobi. The GDP of this city compared to other cities, capitals, I mean other cities as well. So the practicability of that, particularly for our country, I'm not so sure about it.
Well, to ngoje tuone what this government and the next one will do
don't forget,
in regards to that.
Doreen, as you wind up, the Keep Keino Classic. Stars have already arrived. Sherian Fraser Prize is right here in Kenya. We also have America's Kelly, who was the Olympic silver medalist. And we have our very own Omanyala, among other long and middle distance race runners. It's going to be epic on Saturday at the Kasarani Stadium.
All right, so with that, we have wrapped this first segment of Good Morning Kenya, and as always, so much more in terms of entertainment is coming up in just a bit, so do stay with us. We shall return.